Hello, my name is Jennifer May, and I'm excited to be presenting to you today a research proposal on training teachers in evidence-based reading skills and seeing how that training affects student reading scores. Let's begin by looking at a plan so that we know what to expect. First, I will briefly discuss current reading data. Next, we will review several studies regarding teacher training of reading. We will look at the design and analysis of a proposed research study and conclude with the expected timeline for finishing this. Each year, the National Assessment of Educational Progress releases a nationwide report card based on student reading and math scores. Last year's report card revealed that only 38% of students are at or above the proficient level. This means that more than half of the students assessed are not reading proficiently. This is alarming, especially considering that over 13 years ago, the National Reading Panel released a report based on hundreds of studies that showed what evidence-based reading skills were in order for children to read successfully. Those main skills are phonological awareness, decoding, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm not going to go into detail about each one of these skills. However, I am happy to answer questions or provide information on each. So the question becomes then, if we know what skills students need in order to read, why aren't they proficient yet in reading? I believe that reading is a complicated skill. It requires those that teach it to have in-depth understanding of language system, cognition, and orthographic and visual representations of sound. For instance, there is a difference between unvoiced p, t, ch, and voiced sounds b, d, j, v. If a student writes the word cup and spells it C-U-B, they are mixing up unvoiced and voiced sounds. A teacher must have this knowledge in order to correct this mistake. Knowledge also must be had on how to break words into segments and what the visual representations of sounds are. For instance, one sound, sh, is spelled with two letters, S-H. Because reading is such an intricate skill, I would like to investigate if training teachers in such knowledge would increase the reading scores of children learning how to read. Thus, I began by looking at other research studies who've investigated similar things. I specifically looked at 5 studies that focus was on finding if teacher training and language skills affects student reading ability. The common thread with all of these studies was also that they were all with elementary teachers and their students, and they all followed a pre-test, post-test experimental design. So what did this research find? In sum, that more training equals greater literacy scores, that students whose teachers received training in language-based reading skills outperform students whose teachers received traditional training, and further, that teachers who received specific training had more knowledge about word structure and language constructs than teachers who did not receive this training. However, the results of the studies are not the only thing to consider when reviewing literature. In order for the literature to be evidence-based, they must meet criteria for quality indicators. As a whole, these studies were lacking in areas of participation, information, and data analysis. These studies laid the foundation for evidence-based research in teacher training, but more research needs to be done. I would like to investigate the following. Does teacher training in language-based reading skills affect teacher knowledge? And does teacher training in language-based reading skills affect students' outcome scores in their reading achievement? Like the literature discussed previously, I would like to follow a pre-test, post-test control group design. The experimental group of teachers will receive training in a program called PATH, Preventing Academic Failure. This program is near and dear to my heart as I have been utilizing it for the past 5 years and was surprised to find that there was no research studies done actually including this program, although the program itself is evidence-based. The control group will continue with their school's professional development and adopted reading programs. I would like to adopt a school for this study that's comprised of at least 4 elementary schools. If this was the case, that would roughly make about 8 first grade teachers and between 160 to 240 students, both with and without learning disabilities. Random assignment of the teachers will take place. Half of the students will be in the control group and half of the students will be in the experimental group, regardless of the school they attend. Briefly, the method of this study will begin with pre-testing teacher knowledge of all teachers. Experimental teachers will receive training during the summer. Then all students will be tested the first days of school before receiving any reading instruction. Then students who have teachers trained in PATH will receive PATH instruction. And then at the end of the year, all students will be post-tested and their scores analyzed. Mean scores of teacher and student scores will be analyzed using ANOVA. Teacher scores will be compared within, that is, pre-test scores to post-test scores, and between teachers who received training and teachers who did not receive training. Student scores will be compared within, that is, pre-test scores to post-test scores, and between students whose teachers received training and students whose teachers did not receive training. Looking at this aggressive timeline, pre-testing would begin in the summer of this year and would end approximately 1 year later with the beginning of analysis of data. Something else to add is that there are built-in fidelity measures to ensure that the teachers are implementing the PATH program in the way that it was designed. The research will be observing the teachers monthly, as well as answering weekly discussion posts in regards to the PATH program. I would like to end with a quote. If he cannot learn the way we teach, we had better teach the way he can learn. Although this is from an unknown source, it speaks to our need to alter the way that we're teaching reading so that all students can be proficient readers. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.